Hi everyone, I'm Shaylin with Readsy, and today we're going to be talking about the costs of self-publishing. Although the costs of self-publishing can vary very widely based on the author and the professionals the author works with during their process, here we're just going to be looking at some averages to get an idea of what you can expect. So first of all, let's look at total cost because this actually varies quite a lot by genre. By average, the cheapest genre to self-publish was romance, with the average cost being around $3,800. Next up was crime, thriller, and mystery, followed by sci-fi fantasy, followed by young adult, memoir, literary fiction, and finally, at the most expensive end of the spectrum, non-fiction books like self-help, business, or health. So let's break this down a little further based on the different costs associated with self-publishing. And first of all would be editing. Not only is a professional edit necessary to produce a polished book, but it'll also teach you so much about craft and help you improve the quality of your future work. There are multiple different types of editing services, and most books are going to require more than one. So here we've broken down the cost of a professional edit for an 80,000 word manuscript. The most expensive type of edit would be the developmental edit. This looks at a book's content, such as the pacing, character development, and structure. The average cost here was around $1,700. Next up was line editing. Line editing is the phase of editing that focuses on the prose of your story, streamlining every sentence to make it as most effective as possible. The average cost here was just under $1,400. Finally would be proofreading. This is going to look at all the technical aspects of grammar, catch any typos, catch any punctuation mistakes, make sure all the dialogue is properly formatted, things like that. And here, the average cost was just under $700. All of this can vary quite widely based on a number of factors, the main one being word count. Editors generally charge by word, so this has a huge effect on the cost of the edit. Next up would be the editor's experience. A new editor is probably going to charge much less than someone with a decade of industry experience. Editing costs are also greatly affected by how much work the book needs. And finally would be the genre. For example, professional edits for historical fiction are generally more expensive due to all the fact-checking and research, whereas mainstream genres and romance are generally the cheapest. Non-fiction is also an area where you might expect to pay a bit more. Because this requires more specialization and knowledge, you can expect to pay up to 40% more for editing services for a non-fiction book. The first way to minimize costs of editing would be to do as much work as possible by yourself first. Work with critique partners and beta readers and do as much self-editing as you can. Not only does this mean the book will require less work, but you can also shorten your word count. You don't want to pay your editor to edit a scene that you have to cut anyway. Next up would be to work with agents who specialize in your genre. If an agent doesn't generally work in your genre, they may give you an inflated quote because this isn't the type of book they generally work on. You can also consider starting with an editorial assessment. This is similar to a developmental edit. Rather than the editor giving you notes within the actual document, you'll just get a detailed report of what is and isn't working. If you're not sure where your book sits developmentally, an editorial assessment checks almost all the same boxes as a developmental edit, but is usually around half the price. You might also be able to save money by working with an editor who offers multiple types of editing services and purchasing a bundle. Next up is cover design. If you're working with a relatively new designer, you can expect to pay between $300 and $500. An experienced professional with several years of experience is going to be more in the $500 to $800 range. If you're working with an industry veteran with around a decade of experience, you can expect to pay up to $1,500. Another thing that affects cost would be the style of design. Stock photo manipulation is generally the cheapest, whereas illustration would be more expensive. Another thing that affects the cost of cover design would be how many iterations or edits the design needs to go through. Your designer may set a limit on how many changes they're going to make to the design. So if you go over, it can increase the cost. As well, if your cover is only for ebook, that's generally cheaper than a cover for ebook and paperback. Next up would be formatting. Although the cost varies, the majority of authors pay around $500 for formatting. This will again be affected by word count, as well as how graphically intense the project is. A novel with only text is probably going to be a lot cheaper than a cookbook with a lot of tables and graphics. Cost can also be affected by the designer's experience, or if this is a niche genre without a lot of designers. Just like with editing, you can save money with a bundle deal, and although DIYing any aspect of your book is generally pretty unadvisable, if you're really on a tight budget, formatting is one of the easier ones to do yourself. Luckily, there are lots of programs available for this, such as InDesign, LaTeX, or you can try using Readsy's book editor. Outside of these main costs, there may be a few other smaller costs as well. For example, depending on your print-on-demand service, you may have to purchase your own ISBN, CreateSpace will provide one for free, but other services like IngramSpark won't. You can buy a bundle of 10 ISBNs for $250, which will save you a substantial amount of money than if you purchase them individually, since they're $120 each, and each format of your book will require a different one. There may also be fees associated with the print-on-demand service you use. Again, CreateSpace is free, but IngramSpark requires a $49 setup fee. If you want to review any of these numbers, all the data is in the blog post linked in the description. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe for new videos every Tuesday and Friday. Thanks for watching. Until next time.